name is Kayla Muskis, and I'm going to talk to you today about foster care. As a foster care statistic, you're more likely to end up behind bars, homeless, addicted, or pregnant. With over 500,000 children in care, we are in dire need of reform, better regulation, and more federal oversight of a broken system. We are paying for this insufficient care with our tax dollars too. We have an obligation to sustain hope in our youth, and especially our most vulnerable demographics like foster kids. We can do this by investing money and resources that are already there into the child's future, creating lifelong income stability and health care, as well as more programs for adult living and promoting education is some ways how we can tackle these issues. Our tax dollars are paying for all kinds of abuse in our foster care system. This is really a call to action. We as a country need to adjust the value we place on our most vulnerable youth. We need to properly allocate federal finances to the actual child, as well as towards their individual needs and future care, which is essentially the nation's future. Did you know that only 3% of foster children go to college and less graduate? That is about 15,000 out of over 500,000, and that's unacceptable. We need to do more to support foster kids in all aspects of life. It be housing, income, healthcare, and most importantly, education. As a young intellectually disabled child, losing my single disabled mother in a car accident set off a chain of unfortunate events. Landing in the custody of my abusive father was a nightmare, and eventually Child Protective Services removed me due to severe sexual and physical abuse, just to place me in another abusive environment that has caused more trauma than any other thing I've had to endure. I was medically neglected, forced to take medication I did not need, bounced around every 3 to 6 months, or was isolated in mental facilities for years where they used pseudoscientific therapies to modify my behavior, even if I had to go to other states, which some could consider trafficking. I went to over 30 schools from elementary to high school, so my education suffered immensely because it was never their priority. Yet, I am one of the 3% of foster kids who go to college. And though I have done exceptionally well, I still have trouble to this day when trying to reach out for financial help or support from my government, who should be my parents. My favorite quote is by Nelson Mandela, when he said that there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. And I could not have said it better myself, because as of right now, America has no soul. Stealing Social Security checks is not okay. Reallocating that fiscal income to the child's future by setting up a trust fund is a start. It ensures an income, enables more opportunities for housing and jobs. It can be done through the same Social Security system that is already established. Lifelong health care and more incentivized promotion of education can all be improved upon, if we could only start putting the money where it needs to go. But the way things are running right now, we'll continue to leave this demographic behind. But these aspects are crucial to our success and future. Children are our nation's future after all, right? And who's anti-future? You see, there's a demographic of disabled foster children who deserve financial stability and generational wealth. Trust funds can be a great way to invest in anyone's future, so why haven't we made this mandatory nationwide? I can tell you from experience that it works. I'm not even 25 years old yet, and I've been a homeowner since 2016. I'm almost done paying off my Jeep, and I only have 6 more courses to take before I transfer to university. My maternal grandparents ensured that I had a strong monetary foundation, and if not for the genuine investment into my best interest, I would not be here today. Social Security can be doing the same thing, but we are not worth that type of investment due to where we come from and our statistical outcomes. As expressed in the movement grows for states to give back federal funds owed to foster children, it says that 10% to 20% of foster kids are eligible for Social Security, yet we age out with little to no money and nowhere to go. There is no department in place to transfer our disability status over when we transition into adulthood. That third source of federal income should be reserved in a trust or savings account for the specific individual's needs and their future. Preventative care and chronic poverty are 2 things that we need to focus on. It's affordable and the most decent thing that we can do for our most vulnerable children in the foster care system. Ensuring that we have a reliable income for the rest of our lives should be a right. Financial income is something we need to learn how to budget before we age out of care. So how can we learn to manage bills and school expenses when we have no real experience? Money offers a stable foundation, and it only seems right to cultivate that for our adulthood, especially for our disabled youth. Don't we deserve a safe place to live? Reading Homeless Youth Seep Through the Cracks, you really get a scope of the magnitude of this problem. After surviving the foster care system, it is the least we can do, and I'm sure it would prevent many of us from falling into bad situations that only get worse. Preventing homelessness should be a national priority, especially for a small portion of our entire country's population. We need a place to live in order to go to school, obtain a license, or get a job. Housing us should be a right we have for the rest of our lives. Homelessness is a scary future for foster youth, and a steady, livable income would alleviate this issue. Expanding on adulthood care is pivotal to the demographic's success, and preventing homelessness is a start to supporting our mental and physical health. The appropriate support of finances and programs could impact foster youth's ability to thrive and live a content and productive life. This resolution alone can help safeguard a significant percent of our foster children from further trauma once they leave care, especially disabled cases, who will struggle with basic needs in their future. Use the money that is already there and allocate it correctly, not to the businesses or foster parents, but to the individual child. And this includes the future of our mental and physical health as well. Lifelong health care should also be a right for former foster youth in our country. I think all-around health care, including dental and vision, should be a right, because there is no way we would survive without it. Better health care while we are still in care is a pivotal factor in why I feel so polarized on this topic. There is accountability to take when it comes down to malpractice causing or exacerbating our illnesses. Physical checkups, mental evaluations, and biological factors should be more vigilant and cautious when diagnosing children and young adults. Overly diagnosing mental disorders and neglecting biological possibilities because they are similar is happening way too often. Mental disabilities are incentivized to be diagnosed because they bring in more money, as the level of care status deems us to be pharmaceutically medicated, which Medicaid pays for. Incentivizing malpractice just to make it more convenient to find places for foster children is a civil rights violation. All this is done with taxpayer money and is set up in a way where the system pays more for higher level of care kids, when in fact they do not really need that intensive care. The way insurance processes things is unethical. This enables the neglect of biological factors that can cause death in some cases. Chronic illnesses impede our ability to function. Mental diagnoses are easier and faster to approve through insurances. It may not always be a valid diagnosis, though. I myself had an underlying autoimmune disorder that looked exactly like and causes some of the same symptoms as many mental illnesses. Since it was neglected for so long, I am now disabled for the rest of my life. We need to do better in ruling out and exhausting any other potential reasons to what is fully medically wrong with us. Remember that our tax dollars are paying for this, so we deserve the best care, and we do live in one of the wealthiest countries of the world, so this should not be an issue, but it is. Another issue is education. Education is a tool we are not utilizing effectively. Nowhere near enough of us are going to college, and there is no excuse. It upsets me because I know we are capable, and many of us are disabled due to no fault of our own. Other develop illnesses as we get older, and sometimes it's from the medication that was administered to us while we were still in care. We are accountable for the all-around health of our youth. This is contingent on our approach to preventative and continued health care for this demographic. Every child in foster care deserves a right to a proper education, yet only 3% go to college. Our intellectual health is not a concern to an industry like this, to be frank. In our foster care rights, it says we have a right to proper education, yet many of us are not prepared for higher learning. As testified in Foster Care Survivors Decries Conditions, as I concur with this, I realize how hurtful this was to the beginning of my college journey. Are we doing enough for our foster kids to go to college? No, not really. And that is why less than 3% get a degree. All this stems from education in our childhood. With no stable living environment or consistent school, we are not just falling through the cracks, but being shoved into them and swept under a rug after we age out. We are failing our youth's educational potential. Take heed on some constructive criticism from a survivor like me. Stop bouncing us around from school to school. It negatively impacts us and does nothing to help us learn. A consistent school would help us learn more and give us a chance to grow in a stable living environment. Supporting our education through tuition waivers is not enough, though I am incredibly grateful for it, and I use it to continue my educational goals. We still need more. We need to encourage college earlier and create more programs that funnel in on disabled subgroups. Developing the skills we need to be successful college students is not easy for anyone, especially nowadays with COVID, yet disproportionately unattainable for most foster youth, as we never really get a chance to learn any of them. Focusing on our education is the most significant aspect in my opinion. I personally will never be able to work, but I can always learn. I have found my place in this world as a lover of academics, and I'm content with the value I bring through my schoolwork. School is not for everyone, but we can accommodate it to where it is. We just need a little bit more support. We as a country need to pay attention to the aspects of income, housing, health, and education for our foster children. We need to be more accountable by holding our government accountable to the outcomes of this demographic and try to spark active change in a broken and abusive system. We can no longer be complicit to the corruption of our youth. As a survivor of the foster care industry and fellow American, I'm asking you to help. As a 3% statistic, I'm begging you to care enough to take real action in supporting our vulnerable foster youth and make sure our taxes are not paying for abuse, but being allocated to the actual child and their future needs. Thank you for your time.